Message. Jason Short.
Hello, Mr. Gibbon.
Here he is. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm up in Scotland and it's been snowing all day, so pretty horrible weather up here. But other than that, doing well.
Crazy weather. I haven't actually. We'll start with just a general bit of chit chat on this podcast, but you probably don't know, Jason, that my roof has a massive hole in it. So we've got.
I saw. So Gibbon sends us random chats on WhatsApp, and I just saw just pots and pans all laid out all over your floor, and you're just trying to make a beat to the sound of the drips. What's happened there? How has that happened?
Making light of a bad situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got significant water damage in the flat. But the storm, the storm has taken off part of the roof. So every time it rains, we then have about a 5-minute period where we have to race around, get all the pots and pans in the positions that we know that the drips are going to come through on, and then replace them when they fill up. As for the plaster and the walls, not much can be done to help that.
I mean, what are you saying to your landlord? Are they not actually doing anything to fix this?
Plenty of emails have been sent. Strongly worded emails have.
I don't think that sounds like it's good enough. You need to do more.
Yeah, he's sending big man Des, the contractor, who is rubbing his hands together because it would mean more work for him. He says it's a 10 grand job. So he's like more water damage than merrier, basically, because it means a bigger job for him.
Mm. Well, more strongly worded emails, and he'll be happy, man. Yeah.
Passive aggressive emails, I think. Well, I mean, I've done most of the talking so far in the podcast, but actually, I want to pass on to Jason because we're going to find out a little bit about Jason's really interesting story.
My little mystery story, yeah.
Now, this will be for my podcast, my Instagram page, which is Joe Gibbon Fitness. What I'm really hoping to have over a long period of time is multiple podcasts like this, where we just chat about all things fitness related. Today's one is going to have more of an angle towards resilience, so more of an angle towards how we're gonna how we overcome adversity and the mental fortitude and thinking that we show when things get difficult. Jason is also going to return the favour for me in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to talk about 2020 and the
mad challenges
they did, that I think you guys might find interesting to find out about. And specifically, what we're not really going to look at what we've done, we're going to look at our mindset towards the challenges before, during, and potentially after as well. Jason has a really interesting story to tell in terms of his experience with that. And I thought we'd pass on to you, Jason, but I thought we'd just begin by talking about your sports background. Right. Tell us about that.
So from, I think, the age of 18 months old, that's when my life of sport began. I was at Tumble Toddlers, Woking Gymnastic Club. So started early, playing on the just bouncy balls and everything like that. I was doing gymnastics until I was about 10, 11 years old. So I always started off with a gymnastic background. And then
is that something your parents got you into then?
Yeah. They got me into it. Me and my brother, we both did it together. We were both competing. We got to compete for South East England, and I actually managed to win a few competitions in that. So
Jason, you said there would be some surprises that you would break, and I mean that you've never mentioned that to me, and that's significant, isn't it? That's competing for the whole region of the country, not just your county. So how long did you do gymnastics for?
Yeah, well, the way it worked is I was part of Woking Gymnastic Club, and you get entered as part of the club into these competitions. So one was a Southeast competition where all the clubs in the southeast of England were competing, and there's a mixture of floor work and vault. It's those are the two main sequences you do, and yeah, the combined result of those two put together is what your well, results who wins, and you can both compete as an individual and as a team. So as a team, obviously, it's the combined total of all the entries in your club, and both in the team events and individual events, I've won and we have won. So, but that suddenly stopped.
I mean, I was just going to ask. They start you off in gymnastics quite young, don't they? Because flexibility, form is such a massive thing, and actually, from my understanding, gymnasts kind of tend to retire when they reach our current age, like 26, 27. But why did it stop for you?
Yeah, yes, as I was going to go into. So, because I was doing so well at my age level, there's a separate. So you have the gymnastic club, and you're a member of the club, but they also have the squad, and the squad is their like elite members of the club. Yeah. So what I got entered into was the mini squad, and what the mini squad essentially is trials to be entered into the squad. So there's a big group of you, and you have to train quite hard. I think I trained 3 times a week over about, I can't remember the period, it was about 6 to 9 month period, and then at the end of that they then choose who they want to select for the squad, and these are the people who'll be competing nationally, at the highest level. And that's where I just didn't cut it, and that's what did it for me. And at the time, it was disappointing, but I think in the long term, I think it's for the best because of other things I'll explain. My sporting career changed in different directions after that. But at the time, I had to do several things like have incredible flexibility, like having the splits, putting your body on the floor, and also doing things where you're pointing your toes and then your ankles lift up. It's hard to explain without seeing, but like
can you
your
still
body
do any of it?
No. I've lost all flexibility.
But, no crucifix on the ring.
No, but it's crazy what your body is capable of doing if you train hard enough. And as I said, at selection, you're asked to do X, Y, and Z. And I thought I managed to do everything just in time, but clearly I wasn't good enough to make the cut. But this leads on to my next.
Yeah, what did you? I mean, I was just gonna step in and say, in the time that I've known you, Jason, which is for like 4 or 5 years, where we were at university, you, in my mind, have always been Jason the runner, Jason the ultra marathon runner. I also know you have a little bit of cross country background through secondary school as well.
Yeah.
What maybe you can fill in the gaps in the meantime before.
I think gymnastics definitely was a good grounding for anything because of the core body strength you need. You also need to be very diligent in your work. You have to be very like when you're doing the floor routine, you have to be careful and precise with your movements because obviously you can score points or lose points based on how you perform in that respect. So I think gymnastics is a great a starting point. And I'm not saying I jump from one to the other. They kind of cross over. But I also, towards the end of my gymnastic career, shall I say, I then started doing figure skating, ice skating.
Oh my.
See, I told you, Joe, there's things that you don't know about me. Yeah. So, and again, this came down from my mum because she did ice skating when she was young, when she was 18, I believe. She did very well. And then she got back into ice skating. She stopped skating for a long period of time, and then she decided she wanted to get back, put the skates back on, get back on the ice.
Get the spandex back on.
Oi, shut up. Yeah, Mum thought bring me and my brother along, and I think because of that gymnastic background we were able to do a lot of the kind of the moves. So you got to have a lot of flexibility in ice skating. I also like the speed as well and doing massive jumps and stuff.
Yeah.
So again, like I never competed in ice skating, but I worked on the levels. So you have level 1 to 10, then bronze, silver, gold, and then you get into the national qualifications in ice skating. So I worked my way up to gold, and bronze, silver, and gold are different to 1 to 10 because you actually do it to music and you have the whole ice rink to yourself, and then you have judges who judge you. So you can imagine some of these. Well, we got the Winter Olympics going on now, and you can imagine what they do in the Winter Olympics. That's what I had to do in front of a panel of judges for both the bronze, silver, and gold, and I really enjoyed it at the time. I also did a show. So every winter, I was at Slough Ice Rink. We performed in a show. It it was paid. You had to pay to go to it, but I don't remember ever being paid for actually performing. But we I mean that was good fun. But
No,
then
I
I
mean,
decided to stop. I decided
I
to
can
stop
see
and do
it.
something else. I
I
reached
can see a
gold.
definite crossover between gymnastics and ice skating in terms of like that core strength, flexibility, form
Hmm.
being part of it, judges as well. I had no idea about the ice skating or the gymnastics. So incredibly interesting
I've
to
kept it hidden for you
find
for a
out. But it
while.
also explains surprising levels of flexibility that you show at times as well, Jason. Now, are you all right to move on to the running part of your sports?
Not quite yet, because
Yeah. Okay.
there's
There's more
there's
more to come.
I then moved sideways after I got my gold. I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm gonna go play rugby, and so I played for Windsor Rugby Club, um, and I played for about 7 years. So again, all these crossed over. So I did my gymnastics, sort of introduced ice skating, and then as I sort of was finishing my ice skating, I started playing rugby.
Yeah.
Stopped ice skating, continued rugby. I got into the first team at Windsor, which was great.
What was your
Really enjoyed
position?
it.
Position.
I started out on the wing, then I moved to fullback, and I think fullback's my favorite position to play. Uh, uh, and I think because I have quite a good cardio, I am constantly having to run backwards and sideways. And then they moved me into the inside centre, and then very briefly as a number 8 as well. But it tends to
Everywhere,
be
Jason.
it tends to be positions which require a lot of running. But you wouldn't have thought this, but I'm not the biggest bloke in the world, but I could tackle. So that's why they wanted me at the back, because I would just, no one will get past me. They think there's this little
Look
guy there. I'm going to run straight through him, but I will just get into the floor. Like it's
look at your namesake as well, Jason Robertson, that classic English fullback. wasn't
exactly
particularly wasn't particularly tall. Another Jason known for his tackling.
bigger
I
they
was
are, the harder
always
they fall. Yeah,
I was
exactly.
always out on the wing as well, because the wing, you have a slightly less responsibility out there. You're either going to go forwards or backwards, and you normally have one person to tackle at a time. So it's a little bit more straightforward for someone like me who was never particularly good at rugby. Was there anything after that before your running?
Um, I like to think that was sort of the end of, how should I say, I mean, it's not professional, but like my more structured career, if you will, at least
Yeah.
as a team sport. And then uh, I played rugby up until the end of sixth form. So I was playing for school as well. And then during all this, I was also very good at athletics. So um, I used to compete at the Thames Valley Athletic Centre, and my best uh, event was triple jump. So again, in year 9, I competed for Berkshire, and I become Berkshire triple jump champion at Reading Palmer Park. So that was
Well, I know, having an athletics background, I know that is actually a very significant achievement. because you would then go on to like an inter-counties competition, wouldn't you, following that, or some form?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my jump's just short of the
Qualifying.
the qualifying distance to get into camp. They offered me to go in, but I thought, you know what, I'll
Was
probably
this
look
for
like an idiot.
schools?
Yeah,
You should have
yeah,
done it because it was on TV. English
I know.
schools athletics is on TV, so you'd appeared. You would have appeared on TV on Sky Sports. They used to televise it.
I mean, yeah, I was thinking at the time I might just look an absolute plonker, like everyone's jumping super far, and it's just me. Don't even make it to the sandpit.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe. Yeah, if they're putting you on the uh, triple jump knowledge is poor, but I think you have don't you have like a 5, 7, and 11 meter board? So if they
yeah,
started you on one of those, you actually might have landed on the tarmac, which would have
yeah,
been
and I just still want to look like a fool in
embarrassing.
front of everyone. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and then I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're then up to date with meeting me at university. Because
Yes.
I met Jason, the runner, who had this massive love. Guys, if you've never met Jason, he just loves doing these extreme, a little bit like me, loves doing extreme things where he really tests himself, tests his ability, tests his physical performance as well as his mental ability. And that's what made me, as soon as I met Jason, realize straight away this is a bloke who I know I'm going to be able to spend time with. I know that we're going to have a like mindset. Your history of sports has kind of just filled those gaps that I never
I
knew,
would have thought so.
explaining
Yeah.
explaining why you're that type of person to some extent. Now you've done ultra marathons, half marathons. You've done a lot. Do you want to just tell us about some of them that you've done? And also, I think what I'm interested to find out as well is why you did them. Because
Okay.
some people look at
Right.
ultra marathons and go, "Why would you do that?"
Right. I think I got to jump into uni right now because I joined Loughborough, and
Beluga
if
Baruga.
if many of you might be aware that there's different halls and they're very competitive inter hall competition, and I chose the hall I went to, Royce, because their rugby team was one of the best uh, uh, of, at the university. So because of my rugby background playing for Windsor, I thought I'll join Royce. But then I realised it's just so competitive at Loughborough.
I
Like,
don't
it's
remember
just
playing rugby.
unreal. Yeah, no, honestly, I did it for a bit, and then I thought, you know what, it's just
Get flattened by absolute
it
giant
wasn't
men.
it wasn't even the getting flattened side of things. Because I said before, I could take people down. It wasn't that. It was just how competitive it was, and I wanted to have a good time, and I realised that there's two ways I can do this. I could either compete against some of the best players in the world, I say in the world, in the country, or
Well, fair. You know, Loughborough is the capital of sport in the UK. So
mhm. But yeah, very, very, very good players. Or I could take advantage of the fact that there's so many other sports that you could take advantage of. That, you know what, I thought I'll go do something different, never done before. So I decided to do wakeboarding. I decided to do mountaineering. I decided to do skydiving. I wanted to try different things, and just take advantage of it being super cheap. Gliding as well. We were able to go on a glider for £5, and to do that now it's just it's
astronomical.
very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I was just trying out all these different sports, and there's also other ones where you don't have to pay. You can just rock up and have a go, little free sort of trial sessions. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. And running's always been something in the background I've liked and enjoyed. And I would actually say my professional career in running, shall we call it that, started when I was at my internship, and I was sitting at a desk. You know, I wasn't doing a lot of activity all day, sitting there working behind the computer, and I thought I need to do something. So then I signed up one of there's a running club at the company, and they do like a charity, sort of like a Tough Mudder style race. And I was like,
So
yeah, I'll
you're
join that.
19, 20 at this point.
Yeah, 19. And I was like, I'll try this Tough Mudder sort of challenge, and you run for the company. So it's like a company team. This is it's all fun, but you're sort of the company's team. And I really enjoyed that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to run a marathon, just like that. I was like, I'll run a marathon and I'll raise some money. That was kind of my uncle is sadly suffering from dementia, so I thought I'll raise some money for dementia and run a marathon, just
And
like that.
just to stop you, that's a big leap. You're Jason, age 19. You've been doing skydiving and wakeboarding at uni, and all of a sudden you're in this internship. You're finding
Yeah,
you're kind of living a sedentary
yeah,
lifestyle at desk, which I think a lot of us could probably relate to from 2020. With working from home. But can you give us some hint or clue as to what was like, I'm gonna run a marathon? Was it because of
it's
your uncle,
I
sorry,
don't
or
I think it's hard to explain how my mind works, but I just get these ideas and I'm a bit like, I'm going to do it,
yeah,
And then having
yeah, I know
that,
what you mean.
having my uncle as well and wanting to support him also provided me with a bit more,
Nice.
reasoning to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I thought, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to raise some money as well to make good of all of it. And it's a challenge. And yeah, I just started training, and just like that, I just began training every day, doing something, increased my mileage. I followed a
yeah.
plan. Dementia UK was the charity I ran for. They provided us with assistance by a professional, a trainer, coach who was able to give us a plan. So we followed that, and yeah, I managed to raise at the time about £700. So
Mad.
uh,
It's really
I
good,
was
especially for a cause like dementia.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. Uh, I am going to pry Jason. Like you said, it's hard to explain how my mind works. I want to find out. I want to find out.
Because it
Because
gets
that's
it
that's
gets
what we're
better
going into today. Like,
because
I want to
it
talk about these things.
it gets even
I think
better.
people will find it inspirational because someone will look at that and be like, someone might not actually be able to understand the thought process there, and might find your thought process really interesting to find out about.
And just to add to how my mind works is I remember finishing. It was amazing because if anyone knows the Brighton Marathon, you start as sort of kind of in the center of Brighton. You then run along the beach to one far end. You then turn back, run back to the center. Then you run out to the far point along the beach. You turn around, you're about 5 kilometers from the finish, and you can see how far away it is. And I could see people dropping like flies, and you kind of lose your will because everyone's dropping and thinking, oh no, I haven't got much energy left. I've got to go all the way to the other back to Brighton again. But then I remember the crowd lifting you as you're running back, and then I was managed to start getting really fast again, and then finished. And then I think there's three things that can happen when you finish. Obviously, you're happy, and it's amazing that you finished that distance. And people either never want to do it again, want to do it again, maybe a bit quicker, or they want to go further,
Yeah,
which is probably a very small part of the population who finish
it
marathons.
goes.
And I was like, I want to go further, and literally not that day, but a few days afterwards, I was looking for ultra marathons, which are sort of good for newbies to the ultra marathon world. And I found one which was in the Lake District, which was 37 miles. The St. Vegas Ultra is what it's called, and it's really good because it takes you through different types of terrains. You go over a mountain, you go through a forest, around a lake,
That's what's
and
amazing about running those lengths and
mm,
choosing a good venue, isn't it? That you're not running through a town. It's not concrete. The world around you is literally changing as you go through the run.
yeah, it was a great run, and also you're orienteering, so it's not like there's signs everywhere. You're having to literally follow a map, read instructions, of how to navigate your way through. So it's
like a
so
mental,
that made it a bit more interesting as well, because it's quite a long time you have to run for. So it gets you
get it
thinking.
wrong, you go further as well.
Yeah, you don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay,
But
so
please pry away, pry away.
tell me why. I've got two questions now. Tell me why, just if you can, try to pin down one reason why you were like, I'm going to do a marathon. Because
I
I think
think
that'll give
because
us
of the, I
to you.
think because I wanted to test to myself that I can do it. I wanted to challenge myself, and you hear marathon is an incredible distance to run, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a person who's capable of running a marathon, and uh, and then having my the charity, the money I was fundraising as well, helped me through the dark times of training. You know, you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
That really helps you, having the cause behind you as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think just to add to that part, the hard part when I did my marathon was the actual thing. You train so that you make the actual thing as easy as possible. So for me, the hardest part was the training. That was the marathon itself. Was putting
Yeah.
all that work in so I could get to the start and do it on the day. Like that was actually the part that I was like, I need a break from that. I need a break from the training. I love the marathon, but I need to move on from the training. Um, what about that next step? Because that is even more complex to understand. So you've just finished your marathon and you're now going, I want to go further.
Yeah.
What's the thinking behind that?
It's weird because your mind change throughout the marathon. Your mind changes. Like, obviously you're about to run it. You're full. You're really excited. You're like, wow, I'm about to do this. And then you've trained so long for this, and you're finally there, and you do it. And then I remember doing a half marathon, and I ran the half marathon fine. Like, I wasn't tired. Like, I wasn't aching. Like, I was thinking, wow. And then I think I got to about 3/4, and this is when I was on that final stretch where you're running away from Brighton, and that's when suddenly you hit the wall. I hit the wall. You know, I slowed right down, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to continue at the pace I was at. Uh, and then I got to the furthest point away before you have to turn back and run to the finish. And this is where I saw people dropping like flies. And yeah, you really have to focus. And I think I did actually at one point start walking, because everyone around me started walking, just dropped, and I was like, and it just demotivates you. And
Yeah.
I started walking, and I was like, and then suddenly something hit me. It's like, what are you doing, Jason? You're walking. The finish line's there. You're going to get to the finish. And then it was almost like I got out of myself
Yeah.
and pushed myself, telling you, come on, get to the finish. And then I pushed myself. And the problem was, is at this point of the race, at this stage, you're in this sort of industrial estate. So there's not many people cheering you on, because you're only allowed in there if you're running the race. There's no one to cheer you. So uh, that was the hardest point, and I had to push myself out of this industrial estate. And then that's when the crowd started gathering. And as you get closer and closer to the finish, there's rows and rows of people, and it's like you're running a 5K. Like, you know you've only got a short while left, and then you start sprinting. And then I remember crossing the finishing line, and you have all the klaxons and screams of people and the music playing, and I crossed the line, and I was like, wow, that was amazing. And you completely forget about that industrial estate that was only about 20 minutes ago.
Not the nicest place of the course, and I imagine that adds to it as well. And it always happens where I've always noticed in races, it tends to be the hardest parts tend to be where the fans aren't. And I feel like sometimes fans and spectators don't actually have an understanding of, I would like you to be in that industrial estate, because that's where I know I'm going to be awful. I know it's not going to be great for you because no one's there, but I need you at that point as a pick me up.
And as a side note as well, I recently ran the London Marathon, and then Joe, you were positioned at that point. You knew
Yeah,
exactly where to stand.
because I'm a run, like runners know exactly, and I mean we're gonna hopefully get on to talk about that later because that was
Yeah,
a following some things that happened, which we're going to go on to. That was a really
yeah.
emotional moment for me to see there. Also, I've found just what you were saying about that herd mentality of everyone's walking, so it's okay. But you just slapping yourself out of that and going, no, I'm in a marathon. I'm gonna push. I don't want to be that person who is walking. I want to be that person who goes over the finish line running. Find that
Mhm.
really interesting to hear as well. How you kind of just plucked yourself out of that and got yourself out of that
It
back
was
to
really
reality.
tough, and
Yeah,
it was one of the toughest things you have to do. But something within me was able to do that.
yeah. I mean, that's
Mm.
probably a little bit of conditioning mapped also with just who you are as a person, Jason. Because if you were a dead man walking because of your fitness, you wouldn't have been able to do that. Like to have you, that comes with confidence, with knowing that you can push yourself a little bit further, doesn't it? So it's probably Jason being the absolute hero that he is, and also Jason being a fit athlete who is capable of snapping himself out of it and going, "I'm not satisfied with just walking. I'm going to push
Mm.
myself." Cool. But that takes us up to um, what might be the crux of the interview, which was around that time. So we had university, right, and
Yeah.
a quite a big, if I do say so myself, because this is personal for you, but quite a big life changing event then happened for you when we were in our final year of university.
Hmm.
Um, I, I I mean, it's not really my place to say what happened, so I'm gonna just pass on to you, Jason, just to give us a rundown of this event that took place that changed quite a
Sure.
lot of things for you.
Yeah. So what happened is I did sustain a life-altering injury, which has had quite horrible effects on not just myself but other people around me. Fortunately, I'm over the hardest part of that, but I was out on a night out with my brother and his friends celebrating one of my brother's birthdays, and I don't remember this, but upon leaving the nightclub, we were attacked by some people, and uh, again, there's many different stories. It's not all consistent, but I was hit. I fell backwards, hit my head on the ground, and that's where the damage was done. It resulted in 4 fractures in my head, and I had a severe brain injury impact, which resulted in a huge pressure. So it was the front of my forehead was bruised as a result of the impact, and the brain moved forwards, and it bruised all along the front. And then your body's natural reaction is to swell to protect itself, but because it's cocooned within inside the skull, the only way uh, the brain can go is down, and that meant that pressure was being put on my spinal cord. And if I wasn't treated as quickly as I was, I probably could have been paralyzed, and maybe even worse. I would have died from the injuries. So it was a horrible, horrible injury that happened to me. I was a victim of an assault, and uh, but what I want to focus on is the positives from this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you may have questions about what happened to the guy who did it. There's been a police investigation, police inquiries. It's still an open investigation. This happened back in 2017. Unfortunately, the individual has not been caught, which is very sad. This happened in the dark of night. There was no cameras, so there's no evidence, photographic evidence of this happening. Um, but again, as I want to say, I could focus on on the bad stuff, but I don't want to. I want to focus on the positives.
Yeah.
And where I was in the wrong place at the wrong time for the injury, but I was in the right place in the right time and the right time for everything that happened post injury. So around the corner, there was an ambulance treating someone else. So immediately, paramedics were able to come deal with me. There was also a nurse who was apparently nearby as well, a trained nurse. So again, they were able to come and attend to me immediately. One of my brother's friends, who's a boxer, is trained in recovery position, basic first aid, so was able to treat me with basic first aid. So everything, all the stars were aligned for my treatment. And so the paramedics came and stabilized me and then immediately took me to the local hospital. They were able to stabilize me further. However, I wasn't able to have the treatment I needed. I needed to go to a specialist unit. They were considering an ambulance, however, an air ambulance, but they thought that the pressure differences and that kind of thing could have resulted in a potential worse outcome for me. So this was about 3 a.m. in the morning when this occurred. So they thought, okay, we'll stick you in an ambulance and then rush you as fast as we can to one of the countries and one of the world's leading neurosurgery hospitals with a specialist unit. And they had one of the country's leading neurosurgeons. This was a Sunday, by the way. They were one of the country's leading neurosurgeons on call, who was available and ready for me to arrive by ambulance. And they were able to treat me straight away. And they tried several medications which reversed the pressure increase, but every time they tried, the pressure then grew back up again. And then they tried a new medication, a different drug, pressure went down, but then exceeded. So I can't remember the classification, the pressure unit, but the brain can sustain 0 to 10 pressure unit. However, I was hitting 40, so that's like 400% the pressure your brain can actually cope with. So there needed something to be done, because very soon, the pressure was going to be too high and put so much pressure on the back of my spine that that would have shut off all communication to my organs, and then I would have died as a result. So they had to take immediate action, which was they took my front skull out. So a third of my cranium was removed to release that pressure, and then my pressure went down to zero. Yeah, the pressure immediately went down to zero, and so that was the main.
It's just mental, isn't it? Like how severe that was.
Yeah.
To remove such a significant part of what is, cranium. It's your head. They take part of your head off. It was incredibly severe.
Yeah, so a third of my cranium was out. So they didn't. So the brain was never exposed to the elements. There's several layers of membrane between your brain and your skull. So they didn't actually have to insert within. They didn't expose the brain to the elements, but they took the skull off just to release the pressure. And then I had to then recover from the injuries I had. They weren't sure what injuries I had, so they thought I was in a worse condition than I was. Let's put it that way. And about 2 weeks post operation, I just got up and walked. I knew something bad had happened to me. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I knew something serious had happened, but with the mind you're in, you don't know what's going on. I was on a lot of drugs, and I was like, I'm sick of these four walls, because I was just looking at the four walls. So I just got up and I walked outside. I was in my gown, naked, and I just walked out of the hospital just to get some fresh air. And then apparently,
like 28 days later, right now.
yeah. And apparently, like a mob of nurses were running around the hospital trying to find where I'd gone to, because me, I had an exposed head,
Yeah.
like the skin had been reattached, but there's no skull protecting me. I was just walking around aimlessly with this uh, exposed head. So I I knew, as I said before, I knew something bad happened to me. So I walked back in, and this is how my mind works. I was able to retrace my steps back to the ward, and the ward is actually the top floor of the hospital. So I was walking up the stairs as well. I should not have been on stairs, but I was walking up the stairs, and this is where a mob of nurses then were like, "Jason, where have you been? What are you doing?"
And
And
you
they sort
remember
of,
this. You remember this.
I remember this, and
Yeah.
they kind of escorted me back, and then that's when they realized I was much better recovered than they thought I would be, because a lot of patients who had the same condition as me, would take a long time to recover from that procedure. But 2 weeks in, I was aware of my surroundings, and I was able to I mean, I wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong. I didn't know how bad my injuries were, but I knew I was too conscious to be where I was, which was just laying in a bed with nothing to do, just four walls. And then that's
It'd
when
probably you
they
trying to go out on an ultraman, Jake.
yeah, it's
Woke up and like, oh yeah, time for an ultra.
and
Can't do
I'll tell you
40
what,
today.
so they thought I was going to be in hospital for at least 6 months, and then
Yeah.
they'll transfer me to another hospital close to home, so I'll be close to family, because I was about a 5-hour drive for my family. So they were going to probably keep me there for 6 months, then move me to a close hospital, and then assess me from that point. As I say, 2 weeks I was already in a state where I wanted to walk around and go out. They then tested me, and I went through further rehabilitation for another 2 more weeks. And about a month after I had the injury, I think it was 33 days, I was discharged, and able to return home. It was crazy how quickly my recovery was, from
Yeah.
such a horrific injury. Um, and so I had a long rehabilitation process where I've just sort of integrated myself back into society, but this was from the comfort of my own home rather than being in hospital. I also went to several neuro sort of logical surveys, that kind of thing. Um, and then 8 months later, I then returned to the hospital, and then they put a titanium plate in to my head. So before they actually took my skull out, they did a scan of my head, so they knew the exact dimensions, so they could 3D print eventually the metal titanium plate that will be inserted into where the skull was. And so what I have here, the size of my hand, that's all titanium. It's pretty crazy, and it sends the airport security as if I'm carrying a weapon or something. It just
Jason, you
people.
are a weapon. You should set it off every time, mate.
It was interesting when I went to Thailand, because they didn't speak English, and I was trying to explain to them metal in head, and they just didn't understand, and I was getting worried because
Banging
they
your
had.
head against the
Yeah,
wall.
I was literally tapping. I was like, this metal head, like, and then they called their supervisor. I was like, oh no, they're going to take me to the back room, like they're going to get the gloves out. But fortunately, I did have a copy of my doctor's report, and she was like, yeah, it's fine, you can go
I've
through.
it's probably a stupid comment, but would putting a magnet, I don't even know if titanium is magnetic, but would that be
No, it's
potentially dangerous for your head?
not a ferrous metal, is the technical term. No,
My
it's not.
physics, obviously, it's clearly been 10 years since I've done physics. Do you have I mean, for stuff like that, I'm right in saying you have a card that you keep on you, don't you? Just
So I did. I had a personal brain injury identification card, but I don't. I remember trying to use it as ID once to get into the club, but they weren't having that.
good man.
uh, but I still have that. I don't use that anymore. But this is where I think it's important to go into the next stage. They didn't realize at the time, but as a result of my injury, and this is the long-term effects. So short-term, I was so lucky of how I recovered. that I only got away with, a replacement skull or
Yeah.
part of a replacement skull.
Fractions, as that is.
But it was when I went back into running that this is where I I was so keen for running. I was a runner at that point. I was running these ultra marathons. I was training. I was doing all kinds of distances, and I was so keen to get back into running that when I got the metal plate back in and I had the all clear from my surgeon, I very rapidly built up to 10K.
Yeah.
And it was 10K, and as a standard route I used to do, and I wanted to use that as my baseline. So I wanted to set a baseline 10K, and then I can always refer back to that and see how I progress. And I definitely.
Can I just pause there,
Okay.
just to say, like, because you've like, this is an amazing achievement as it is. You've just had an incredibly traumatic head injury. Let's be honest, lucky to be alive, let alone
Yeah.
at a stage where you're now running 10Ks, which is a distance that some people train for some people will train for that distance and never achieve that in their life. Why, again, you say I was keen to get back into running, as if it's like, oh yeah, I sprained my ankle the other day and I'm keen to get back in. Like, did you not have this period of, I should probably take it easy? Like, what was the thinking there?
To be honest, I was oh, mate. My housemate's coming. So, to be honest, I was waiting for the all clear. But the thing is, the all clear didn't mean go and start running a 10K. It was like, yeah, you can slowly ease yourself back into it. Not run 3K, run 5K, run 8K, run 10K, which is pretty much the program I did, which was stupid. But as a result of me doing that 10K, I fell and I was on the floor. I was picked up by a passerby, fortunately, and I had an epileptic seizure. So that's when I found out, after doing that 10K, I had epilepsy.
And this was the next kind of phase of your recovery, wasn't it? Because
yeah,
there was the initial event, the incredible, miraculous recovery that you had from that, and then this the first time then that this was the warning sign for the next phase of it, was it?
Yeah, and there was no idea. Like, epilepsy is definitely it's caused by the injury I had, but there was no indication that I had epilepsy until I put my body through that torture of running a 10K. And it's not an easy 10K, by the way. There's about 200 meters of incline over the course, so it's not a. And also, I was pushing myself.
You didn't do it.
So yeah, because I've been sort of very relaxed, slowly recovering over those 8 months. I wasn't putting my body through any kind of strenuous activity, which would have resulted in an epileptic seizure. And I've had fortunately no seizures for coming up to 2 years now. They've been testing different medications, and so I've had 10 seizures to date, and all those seizures we can always tie back to some kind of either extreme exertion and alcohol. And I think alcohol is probably the most important.
Knowing you, one of those is going to stop and one of those is going to continue. So which one was it that stopped?
I mean, to be honest, I can do without alcohol. I couldn't do without running. I needed to run, and I was trying everything I could do to keep on my feet. I even started learning an instrument. I was told by my neurosurgeon my neurologist, that I could learning an instrument is really important for brain activity, because you're using different parts of the brain that stimulate. And so I started learning the flute. I just went out and bought a flute because I thought, it's easy. I shouldn't say it's easy. I apologize to all those who say playing an instrument is easy, because I know it's not easy,
The
because I'm
flautists.
struggling. A
They're called
flautist.
flautists, aren't they? Flute
Yeah.
players. So have I got that? Yeah, flautist.
Flautist, yeah.
Flautist. Oh my God,
Flautist, yeah. So I I bought, I did my research, bought a good one for training, for learning, and I like sort of, it's a similar sort of aspect to my wanting to do the marathon, where I was like, I want to learn the marathon. I want to run a marathon. So I just went and did everything I could to learn and train for it. And this was with the flute, where I wanted to learn the Lord of the Rings concerning Hobbit's theme. So I just bypassed learning to read music. I just sort of muscle memory learned the keys for Lord of the Rings.
Can you whistle that song for us, Jason? How does it go?
I can't whistle.
I think we'll probably recognise it straight away, wouldn't we? If it's from Lord of the Rings. Not the main. Oh yeah.
So I learned that on the flute. And ever since learning that, it's been in the case on the shelf. So I need to get back to it. But going back to what I was saying before, I was trying to do everything I could to make sure that I could still run and not be affected by the injury. And two things I think, I'll say sort of the five most important things, which not only are good for treating epileptic people's preventing epileptic seizures, but just in life in general, and that is sleep, water, drink a lot. So sleep, water, eat really healthily, exercise, and also just keep a good social life as well. I think just have a healthy life is so important.
You do find that these things that they suggest for stuff like that are just general things that would help in our general lifestyle changes that are positive anyway, aren't they? Like drink more water, sleep more at night. Sleep is incredibly underappreciated as a recovery tool and as a way of staying healthy.
Mm-hmm. And I am taking medication, but I'm now, having identified those five things I just talked about, I'm now on the minimum dosage, and I'm hoping to potentially completely wean myself off it. And there is that possibility. So I'm going to have to weigh that up. But I know that I'm doing all the right things, and I'm exercising, and I haven't had any problems for 2 years now. So fingers crossed, I've cracked it. I won't have any more. I just got to make sure I maintain a healthy lifestyle without alcohol.
Well, I mean, for everyone who's listening in, when I first approached Jason about having this chat today, I knew that this was a big event and wanted to make sure that he was comfortable talking as openly as he has been about it. So I just want to say, first of all, thanks for sharing that event, because it's massive, right? And it's calm.
I want to share the positives of this. I don't want to dwell on the negatives. You could spend time doing that and then go into a dark place, and I don't want to do that. And I've always tried to focus on the positives, the finish line, trying to get myself, move myself forward and progress. And that's
and it's massive, not easy to talk to, and this is what we're going to go on to next, hopefully, is how you focused on these positives, how you overcame the challenges that being epileptic with a traumatic head injury, how you got back to a point of running that marathon where you ran past me.
I mean, there's been, I've really tried to fit this into a short period of time, because I could talk about this for hours, and to be honest, we probably should do a separate call, Poddy, on how I've overcome many challenges over this. I mean, I've spoke about this very positively, and I like to for the overriding message to be it being a positive experience. But there has been a lot of challenges leading up to where I am now, and I would love to share these with yourself and your listeners here.
I mean, I think you're someone, Jason, who will downplay how serious it actually was, because you focus on the positives, like you said, and that is part of that mindset, isn't it? It's not dwelling on the negatives. It's focusing on the positives, and naturally you then begin to downplay things. But like, my perspective was we were literally expecting at any minute to hear that things are taking a turn for the worst for you. So I was at home, I think it was like an Easter break or something, or Christmas break. And obviously we have a WhatsApp group chat for uni. And the boys are I go onto the WhatsApp chat and the boys are saying, Jason's in hospital, Jason's in critical condition. You know, as serious as it gets and we have no information at that point. And I remember your mum was posting on your Facebook for you so that everyone could follow what was happening on a day-by-day basis. And it was as serious as it gets. You know, your mum was there.
She's been incredible.
Yeah.
I tell you from the beginning of the story, she used to take me to gymnastic club. She used to do everything, for me to make sure I had the best chances in sport, just in other aspects as well. She would always be there and support me from the sidelines. So I can't say enough how much, how much she's done for me, how proud and happy I am to be her son and she to be my mum. Like she's the best mum in the world, and everyone says that about their mum, but she is the best mum in the world.
Moving on to the positives as well, because it was through your mum and those Facebook posts that we could stay up to date. And that's when, my honest perspective, like almost like you've touched upon, was it was as bad as it got. And next second you're walking and mum was saying, Jason's out of bed, Jason's walking, Jason's talking, Jason's doing
getting in trouble in hospital from the
yeah, I mean, me and the boys were just like, yeah, already in trouble at the hospital. Yeah, me and the boys were like, almost couldn't keep up with the just everything that was changing. And like, as you've said already, you defied all the expectations that were set by the doctors in terms of recovery rate, all the things that they were expecting you to be thinking and feeling. You've already said how you were straight back into those runs, and of course there were consequences for doing that, but you don't seem too bothered about it. And I thought maybe you said straight away your response was, I'm not going to focus on what I can't do. I'm not going to focus on the negatives here. So can you, it might be a complicated one to take us through, but can you tell us how you mentally did that? Like, what were the thought processes? Was it simple, or was it something you did on a day-to-day basis? Was it something you had to force yourself to do? Did it come naturally? Can you just talk us through?
I think, Joe, because that is, I don't want to just, I would like to ponder on that one, because that's quite a complicated one. And I think it'll probably be best for me to return on let's say the part 2 of this podcast, because I think I want to do a bit of research behind that question, just to prepare an answer for you there, because there's a lot I have to say, and I want to make it meaningful for your listeners. So and it's getting quite late here as well, so we probably have to
I've texted my mate to say scrap the gym, say we can talk for a little bit more, but I do respect it if you, because that's also quite, that's quite a personal question. So if you
I do want to answer that question, and again I thank you for that question, because it's a great one for me to explain how I dealt with that, but I think I'm going to have to spend some time on that question and get back to you on that.
I mean, maybe what you could just give us a little kind of insight into was Was it something that you literally practiced on a day-to-day basis then? Was it something that you really had to force yourself to do, or again, are you not sure? Do you need
It
time?
was, I did it, I took every day as it came. I didn't think too far in the future. I was like, let's get through this day. Let's get through this day. Let's get it through this day. You know, and every day I got through, I felt better and stronger. Each day I was feeling stronger and stronger and stronger. It was it's so hard to explain without you experiencing it, but
Yeah,
it's just every day is a blessing, and um, you look forward to the next day, and then you look forward to the next day, and then each day's getting better and better, and you can do more. And because again, I wasn't completely conscious. It's hard to explain, but each day you felt a little bit more alive. You felt a little bit better, and this is why I want to spend some time on this question, because I want
yeah,
to
yeah, because it
explain it well.
probably evolved as
Yeah.
you went through recovery. So,
Hmm.
you know, the thought process probably naturally changed with that. I mean, I saw that with you when we then began to see you out of hospital. Because I think the first time we met up with you, and it was like a big visit, you almost gave us like a heads up. You were like, this is going to be different, this is going to be different, this is going to be different. And the first big difference was the ginormous hurt locker style helmet that you had on your head to protect yourself, because at this stage you still didn't have you still didn't have a forehead. You did this outrageous thing where you would put your finger on your
Oh
forehead,
no.
chin, which I'm sure was not advised by the doctors. You had we spoke about this the other day, but you also had to be very slow with your movements, because if you turned or moved your head too quickly, that could make you feel really dizzy. Like I remember you really kind of turning your whole body, not like slowly, so that you could talk to us guys.
Yeah, I had to live in slow motion basically. You adapted to that, and that became the new norm for you. But obviously, to onlookers, that's a bit odd.
I mean, I noticed your positivity as well. Like you were the same. Obviously, there were physical changes, and you weren't quite with it when you had like short-term memory loss for a period of time as well. I remember.
I could, yeah, things
Um,
would just go over me. Yeah.
yeah,
That
but
stuff.
your positivity was intact as it ever was, if not
That's
kind of
great to know.
ramped
That's
up,
Yeah.
if
So
not
there
like
was.
ramped up to the next level
I
positivity.
think I'll finish on this last bit.
Yeah.
And this is what my mum knew, that I was fine, because apparently the first two things I said when I woke from my coma was, "Where's Matt?" Matt's being my brother. So I knew I my memory of being out on that night out was still in my short-term memory. So I
Yeah.
said, "Where's Matt?" And then the second thing I said was, "I feel weird." And the fact I said I feel weird, my mum knew I was fine. She was
That's
like, "I've got my boy back. He's fine."
yeah. That's remarkable, isn't it? That it's almost like someone has had pressed pause like you would on a DVD and
It was.
left it for 2 weeks and come back, and
Mhm.
they have a general understanding of what might be going on. That's crazy that
And to my doctors again, those things, those memory and just my language of how I speak, I feel weird. Um, that just meant, like, cognitively, I was in a good
Has your
place.
mum ever said why she knew you'd be okay when you said I feel weird? Because obviously that could be quite worrying for a parent.
No, 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 it was the way I said it, and the way I said it was the way I would always say something if I just felt a bit ill, or felt I was like, if you're not feeling well, like, you are well, but you feel a bit weird. Like the way I said it, I was just like, "I feel weird, mum," kind of thing. And she was like, "Yeah, he's fine. I know he's going to be all right."
Also, that
All
that
hooked up
also
and everything, but I was. She said she knew I was fine.
that does also imply that you are well enough to know that you've felt differently. So you have some sort of understanding that things aren't quite right. Because of course, if things were really bad, you might not actually be able to
true.
register that, if that makes sense.
So I think at the time I had my eyes closed as well. So I knew my mum's presence was there either through her talking or touch. I don't remember me saying this, but this is what I was told. But yeah, this is the first thing I said was those two sentences, and she knew I was fine, and fine to a point, obviously. But
yeah. I think just going back to, I know this is something that you want to.
But we are going to have to wrap up here, though.
Oh, you're finished. Oh my gosh. Okay. Is that just need to move on? Okay. Can I just ask a few more questions? Is that all right? And then we could do like a part 2.
No, we've got to housemates. Yeah.
Okay, don't worry. Well, I mean, I think it's inspirational enough to hear what you've been going, your story, and thanks for sharing it. Next, in part 2, I had no idea there'd be a part 2.
Well, there's a lot to the story. So.
Part 2 is now a thing. So we've heard the story. So next time, hopefully, we'll find out a bit more about how you create that positivity in your mind on a day-to-day basis, and how that evolved as you recovered. I also want us to find out more about, again, focusing on those positives, what the amazing things you have achieved since then.
It'd be really good to explore those, and I want to ask you questions too. I haven't forgotten about you, Joe. You are an inspiration person.
I'm hoping to have a separate one, because I honestly feel like my story with 2020 and the challenges is just purely me being an idiot and doing these challenges to push myself. So a different type of mental
but
thing.
you've got to have a certain type of mindset to do those too.
Yeah, I did some pretty crazy challenges, which is, in my perspective, is a different kind of mindset, and you possess that as well. So I think you'll be a really good person to ask me about those sort of things. But okay, so next time we'll talk about how you actually created that positivity and how you created a positive mindset. We'll find out about the amazing things you've achieved since then, and then also what some of our plans are, like me and you, for the future as well. No spoilers at the moment. There are just a few really interesting things that happened with the hospital as well. Just you mentioned some emotion tests, which I think might be interesting to hear about, because I've got no idea what those are. But also just to find out your new goals and targets, and also what has brought you to this position that you're up to.
I look forward to telling you, and thanks for asking as well.
I knew this chat would be good, and I'm even more excited about the next part, because obviously I know a lot about the experience you've been through, but I really
found out some new things today as well, which
I'm really excited to get my bucket and spade out and do some real digging into your mindset, because I think that will help a lot of people as well.
Dig away. I look forward to it.
So this will parts of this will be posted on my podcast, not my podcast, on my Instagram channel, but there will be a full link to this, which will be posted on Jason's YouTube page, which is
Intrepid Being.
So there'll be links for this. Jason will post it on his social media. I'll post it on mine, and then part 2 will be following soon, guys. Jason, I'll call you after this. All right.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. No, amazing chat. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Speak soon. Yeah. Take care.